In the previous modules, we discussed about population dynamics and about urbanization. In this module, we will be discussing about increasing threats to the natural environment. This module covers the state of the planet, pollution, which specifically be water, land, and air pollution, land or soil, and international development goals. In a speech in December 2020 by the UN Secretary General on the state of the planet, he said that we are facing a devastating pandemic and new heights of global heating, and the planet is in new lows of ecological degradation. He continued that biodiversity is collapsing. 1 million species are at risk of extinction. Ecosystems are disappearing before our eyes. Deserts are spreading. Wetlands are being lost. Every year, we lost 10 million hectares of forests. Oceans are overfished and choking with plastic waste. The carbon dioxide they absorb is acidifying the seas. Coral reefs are bleached and dying. Air and water pollution are killing 9 million people annually, more than 6 times the current toll of the pandemic. Imagine that. And with people and livestock encroaching further into animal habitats and disrupting wild spaces, we would see more viruses and other disease-causing agents jump from animals to humans. Now, the UN report continued that 75% of new and emerging human infectious diseases are zoonotic. The new authoritative reports from the World Meteorological Organization and the United Nations Environment Program spell out how close we are to climate catastrophe. The year 2020 was on track as one of the 3 warmest years on record globally, even with the cooling effect of La Nina. Ocean heat was at record levels. Okay, the past decade was the hottest in the human history because of that. Now, more than 80% of the world's oceans experience marine heat waves. So marine heat waves occur everywhere in the ocean. In 2003, in Mediterranean Sea, in 2012, here in Northwest Atlantic, and in 2013 to 2015, the blob here. No? Climate modes like El Nino can cause marine heat wave events to occur. Arctic sea ice in October of that year was the lowest on record, and now refreezing has been the lowest on record. Dugay kayo. Look at this. In 1981 to 2010, but in 2020, that's what it meant as the slowest to refreeze. Now, Greenland ice has continued its long-term decline, losing an average of 278 gigatons a year. Permafrost is melting and so releasing methane, which is a potent greenhouse gas. A new study documents evidence of a massive release of carbon from permafrost as temperature rose at the end of the last ice age. Now, loosening of the soil as permafrost melts can lead to erosion. So just look at that as a state of our planet. Apocalyptic fires and floods, cyclones, hurricanes are increasingly the new normal. You just have to look at the news, and it's on the news on a almost daily basis. The North Atlantic hurricane season has been 30 storms, more than double the long-term average and breaking the record for a full season. Central America is still reeling from two back-to-back hurricanes, part of the most intense period for such storms in recent years. And last year, and that's 2019, such disasters cost the world 150 in billion dollars. Of course, we had our own share of that in Sindong, with Sindong, and then the following year, the Pablo, and so on. Now let's have, after the discussion of the state of the planet, the pollution. Pollution describes the introduction of contaminants into an environment of air, water, and land at levels that are damaging. Directly related to carrying capacity, environments can often sustain a limited amount of contaminants actually without marked change, and water, air, and soil can heal themselves to a certain degree. However, once contaminant levels reach a certain point, the results can be catastrophic. Now let us go to water system. There's this water pollution. You are familiar with this picture. This is in Manila, right? Now look at your watch. Wait for 15 seconds, then another 15 seconds. In that time, two children have died from lack of access to clean drinking water. Access to safe water is one of the most basic needs, and it is woefully out of reach for millions of people in the planet. Now, major diseases that peripheral countries battle, such as this on here, cholera, typhoid, diarrhea, hepatitis A, are caused by contaminated water. Often, young children are unable to go to school because they need to walk several hours a day just to collect potable water for their family. The situation is only getting more dire as the global population increases. Of course, more people, more water needs. Water is a key, scarce resource in the 21st century. As every child learns in school, 75% of Earth is made of water. Despite that figure, there is a finite amount of water usable by humans, and it is constantly used and reused in a sustainable water cycle. The way that humans use this abundant natural resource, however, renders much of it unsuitable for consumption and unable to sustain life. For instance, it takes 2.5 liters of water to produce a single liter of Coca-Cola. The company and its bottlers use close to 300 billion liters of water a year, often in locales that are short of reusable water. Now, industrial processes like tars, sands extraction use vast amounts of water that is not returned to the natural cycle. Now, as a consequence of population concentrations, water that are, yeah, this one, close to human settlements is frequently polluted with untreated or partially treated human waste, chemicals, radioactivity, and levels of heat sufficient to create large dead zones incapable of supporting aquatic life. Oh, Boracay experienced this actually. This is in the Pasig River before. Now, water pollution affects the quality of aquatic life and water and land animals. Since humans consume at all levels of the food chain, we ultimately consume the carcinogens such as mercury accumulated through several branches of the food web. Let's go to soil pollution. Soil erosion and desertification are just two of the many forms of soil pollution. In addition, all of the chemicals and pollutants that harm our water supplies can also leach into soil with similar effects. Brown zones where nothing can grow are common results of soil pollution. Desertification occurs since overgrazing, deforestation cause soil erosion and loss of soil nutrients. One demand of the population boom, look at these people on the planet, is an attendant requirement for more food to be produced. Just like water, the more people, the more water needs, and the more food needed. Now, air pollution. The fast-growing economy and burgeoning industry have translated into notoriously poor air quality. Outdoor air pollution affects urban and rural areas and is caused by multiple factors, from fumes in industry and energy supply, from dusty areas, from transports emissions, from improper waste management, from agricultural practices that may be improper and inappropriate, from household energy use and misuse. And countries cannot tackle air pollution alone. It is a global challenge we must all combat together. Now, smog hangs heavily over the major cities, sometimes grounding aircraft that cannot navigate through it. Air pollution accumulates in the body, much like the effects of smoking cigarettes that accumulate over time, leading to more chronic illnesses. And in addition to directly affecting the human health, air pollution affects crop quality as well as heating and cooling costs become high. Now, for the international development goals, let's just take those from the millennium era. So 2000, beginning 2000. There was the so-called MDGs or the Millennium Development Goals, which cover 15 years from year 2000 to 2015. Thereafter, MDGs were replaced with SDGs or the Sustainable Development Goals. MDGs from 2000 to 2015, SDGs from 2016 to 2030, referred to as the 2030 or agenda. In both MDG and SDG, the Philippines is a signatory to it, along with other countries. The MDGs had 8 goals. Let's just mention a few, those relevant to our discussion. The Millennium Development Goal number 7 is to ensure environmental sustainability. Okay. Now, particularly, let's focus on this target 7C. By 2015, it states have or reduce to 50% the proportion of people without sustainable access to safe drinking water and basic sanitation. Specifically focused here are two aspects: access to safe drinking water and basic sanitation. The world has now met the MDG target relating to access to safe drinking water. In 2012, 90% of the population used an improved source of drinking water compared with 76% in 1990. Progress has, however, been uneven across different regions between urban and rural areas and between rich and poor. With regard to basic sanitation, rates of progress are too slow for the MDG target to be met globally. In 2012, 2.5 billion people did not have access to improved sanitation facilities, with one defecation in urban areas. With 1 billion of these people still practicing open defecation. Due to rapid growth in the size of urban populations, the number of people living without access to improved sanitation is increasing as well. With increased urban population size, more people have no access to sanitation. Now, despite the success of the MDG, there were limitations. Four limitations were identified around half of current MDG indicators not reported by many countries. There was fragmented approach, nothing on inequalities, access, um, and the NCDs or the non-communicable diseases, injuries, human rights. There was limited focus on environmental health, and there was a top-down process with main focus on low-income countries. After years of working the MDGs, 15 years, right? That signified to their achievement. In 2016, the MDGs were replaced with SDGs, or the Sustainable Development Goals, as mentioned earlier. From the 8 Millennium Development Goals, there are now 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And from that, one MDG on the environment, you remember, number 7, MDG 7, there are now 6 goals relating to the environment. SDG 6 on clean water and sanitation. SDG 7 on affordable and clean energy. SDG 11 sustainable cities and communities. And SDG 13 on climate action, and SDG 14 life below water, and SDG 15 life on land. These are now very specific. And because the root cause of all of this that we have discussed, of the state of the planet in relation to the pollution that resulted to the root cause anthropogenic activities, the solution can only be us, our human action. For example, it's possible to have this with a strong political will of the government. Before, in Manila, it's like this. Then after cleaning, that's this came after how many government, I mean presidents, right? And also this one. So it's possible really for us to rehabilitate our planet with us taking into action